That's enough! I want them dead! Both of them! I want this no-face dead, and I want Tracy dead. What's the matter? You bums forgot how to kill people? Doesn't your work mean anything to you anymore?
I get them, Tracy. We don't even know who they are.
Whoever did it took their identification. They didn't take a dime.
Big boy caprice.
Stupid cop! You refuse me! I offer you the keys to a kingdom, and you tell me you're an officer of the law! I am the law!
You're right, I do want you. In court, where you can tell the truth.
You're lying. You want me the same way that I want you.
I'm taking this bum out of the headlines. I'm rubbing him out.
You kill Tracy, they point the finger at me.
Great shot!
In 1990 saw Dick Tracy come to the big screen and was produced on a budget of nearly $47 million, and Disney spent nearly $50 million advertising it, with endorsements from McDonald's, a new line of toys from Playmate, which looked very odd. They looked like deformed versions of the movie characters. Madonna, who co-starred in the film, promoted Dick Tracy doing her Blonde Ambition world tour. Disney also staged a musical at Disneyland during the months the movie was released, and also promoted it through MTV. So Dick Tracy was given full exposure to the public, which didn't please Warren Beatty at the time, and he said they kind of went too far with the advertising. The movie recouped back $167 million and a further $60 million on home rentals. It was in the top 10 grossing films of 1990, with Home Alone at number 1. There were ideas to bring Dick Tracy to the big screen since the mid-70s, but many studios weren't interested. Once Superman the movie was a big hit, the studios wanted to jump on the bandwagon. Throughout the 80s, director Richard Donner and writer Tom Mankiewicz were asked to be involved in every superhero film that you could imagine for their great efforts on Superman. But Donner turned them all down, but Tom Mankiewicz did get involved in writing early drafts for Batman and Dick Tracy. Many directors were interested in being involved in producing Dick Tracy, from Steven Spielberg to John Landis. But it wasn't until Warren Beatty showed interest that the project got rolling. Many felt that the original draft by Tom Mankiewicz was too campy, and Beatty brought on the writers from Top Gun to pen a new script. During the 1940s there were serials based on the Dick Tracy comics by Chester Gould, which were done on the cheap, and there was a cartoon series from the 60s, and I do remember seeing a few repeats as a kid. But when the film came out, I didn't really know much about the character, so I think to many children they were definitely excited by how the film looked, which I guarantee encouraged many to see it. The casting choices made are splendid. Warren Beatty was criticised for being too old to be Tracy. He was 52 at the time, and I never had an issue with his age. He seemed in good shape and runs about the place and has lots of energy. He plays a very relaxed and sympathetic version of Dick Tracy, but also very dedicated to his job. The villains are the centrepiece of the movie. Al Pacino steals the film very much like Jack Nicholson in Batman. He was even nominated for an Oscar for his performance. His character of Big Boy comes across as a mix of Tony Montana from Scarface and Michael Corleone from The Godfather, with a bit of humour thrown in. Dustin Hoffman plays Mumbles. Every scene he is in, he always makes me laugh.
Where's Lips Manless? Baby, baby, baby girl, baby, baby girl, baby girl, baby girl.
Okay, you heard him, Mrs. Green. That's his testimony. Okay, boys, get him out of here.
Is what?
Madonna looks extremely hot in this film and does an okay performance. A lot of people know she can't act her way out of a paper bag, but in this she does an acceptable job. You have Dick Van Dyke as the district attorney, and James Caan and Paul Sorvino as mafia bosses. You have a great ensemble of actors around Warren Beatty to support the movie. The little kid, however, I found to be very irritating. I don't really think the movie needed the kid in it. When you watch Dick Tracy, it feels like you're watching part 3 of a 3-part act. It essentially implies you already know who Dick Tracy is, and everyone around him. What I later found out that 3 comics were published before the film's release, which are prequels telling the backstory of this film. There is no origin story in this movie, it just starts right into it. Dick Tracy starts with an illegal card game. A young homeless boy witnesses the massacre of a group of mobsters, all with distinctive creepy faces, by 2 of the hoods on the payroll of Big Boy Caprice. Big Boy's crime syndicate is aggressively taking over small businesses in the city. Detective Dick Tracy catches the boy, who calls himself Kid, in an act of petty theft. After rescuing him from a ruthless host, Tracy temporarily adopts him with the help of his girlfriend Tess Trueheart. Meanwhile, Big Boy forces club owner Lips Manless into signing over the deed to Club Ritz. He then kills Lips with a cement overcoat and steals his girlfriend, the seductive singer Breathless Mahoney. After Lips is reported missing, Tracy interrogates his 3 hired guns, Flat Top, Itchy and Mumbles, then goes to the club to arrest Big Boy for Lips' murder. Breathless Mahoney is the only witness. Instead of providing a testimony, she unsuccessfully attempts to seduce Tracy. Big Boy cannot be convicted and is released from jail. Big Boy's next move is to try and bring other criminals such as Spud Spaldoni and Pruneface together under his leadership. Spaldoni refuses and meets an untimely demise upon exiting via a car bomb, leaving Dick Tracy, who discovers the meeting and was attempting to spy on it, wondering what is going on. Next day, Big Boy and his henchmen kidnap Tracy and attempt to bribe him. Tracy refuses, prompting the criminals to attempt to kill him by tying him next to a boiler rigged to explode. However, Dick Tracy is saved by the Kid, who then receives a prize by the police with a detective certificate for saving Tracy. Meanwhile, Breathless shows up at Tracy's apartment once again in an attempt to seduce him. Tracy shows he is only human by allowing her to kiss him. Tess witnesses this and leaves town. Tracy leads a seemingly unsuccessful raid on Club Ritz, but it's actually a diversion so Officer Bug Bailey can enter the building to operate and secretly install a listening device so the police can hear in on Big Boy's criminal activities. The resulting raids all but wipe out Big Boy's criminal empire. Unfortunately, Big Boy discovers Bug and captures him for a trap planned by Pruneface to kill Tracy in the warehouse. In the resulting gun battle, a figure with no face steps out of the shadows to save Tracy after he is cornered and kills Pruneface. As Tracy rescues Bug from the same fate given to Lips Manless, Big Boy is enraged upon hearing that the faceless character foiled his hit. Tess eventually has a change of heart, but before she can tell Tracy, she is kidnapped by the faceless character. With the help of the piano player, 88 Keys, Dick Tracy falls victim to another trap. He is drugged by No-Face and framed for the murder of corrupt District Attorney John Fletcher. Judge Harper has Dick Tracy remanded with no bail. The visual effects for Dick Tracy are outstanding, supervised by Harrison Ellenshaw, who had worked on Tron and Superman 4, provides his best work to date. He brought in loads of matte artists to work on Dick Tracy, and I think the most ever because of the huge amount of work that had to be done. Warren Beatty wanted to create a new world, and they successfully achieved that. Everything is done the old classic way and no digital compositing. The effects team used every trick in the book to bring across the visual design Warren Beatty wanted. The makeup on the villains is also top notch. They really used to creep me out as a kid, especially Littleface. The score to Dick Tracy was composed by Danny Elfman, with help from Shirley Walker. After his success with Batman, he provides a very similar score to this film. As a kid, I do recall thinking, this sounds like Batman. The theme is different to a certain degree, but the rest of the score, there are familiar cues that have been lifted from the Batman soundtrack. The love theme for the movie stands out and is the highlight of the soundtrack. The theme tune for Dick Tracy is very interesting and sounds great, but it's way too short and I wish it went on for longer. It's a bit like Danny Elfman's Batman theme. It works really well, but it's so short and kind of trails off after its epic march. Warren Beatty hired acclaimed songwriter Stephen Sondheim to write 5 original songs. Sooner or Later, More, Live Alone and Like It, Back in Business and What Can You Lose. Sooner or Later and More were performed by Madonna. Stephen Sondheim was also awarded an Oscar with Best Original Song for Sooner or Later, which Madonna performed live at the Oscars. With the hype in full swing, there were video games released on a number of platforms, but the ones people remember are the conversions on the NES and the Sega Mega Drive. The NES version was very poor, frustrating gameplay and level design. The car sequences were very difficult to navigate. I'd stay clear of this rubbish. The Sega version I played a lot when I was growing up, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. You can shoot people in the background and the foreground. It was very repetitive but fun nonetheless, and at the time I thought the graphics were really good. As a kid, I found Dick Tracy to be not that rewatchable. Everyone got hyped up by the marketing, and I think with all the kids they were very intrigued by the look of the movie and the villains. But once you've watched it, you realise as you get older it wasn't really for kids, it's aimed more at an adult audience. I'm not saying kids can't enjoy it for what it is, but they won't get really what the film is trying to do and what its visual style is trying to homage. In regards to its visual design, it's easily one of the best looking comic book movies out there, and being nearly 23 years old, it holds up extremely well, especially the matte paintings. Warren Beatty, with the help from the visual effects artist, created a new world that people hadn't seen at the time. But as a kid I found the whole world in which Tracy lives rather empty. I'm sure it's a directorial choice, but the streets and many of the scenes set outside on location seem lifeless. You get the odd car driving past, but that's about it. Adults will instantly recognise the film noir design and get excited with its direction and its story premise, but the whole story does feel a little stretched out. It's only 105 minutes long, but feels a lot longer, mostly down to scenes being dragged out and feel very lightweight in areas that go on for too long. There is little action in the movie, which as a kid I remember wishing there was more, and I still feel the same. There are a few fight scenes and one big shootout at the end, but it's a very standard affair and not extremely exciting. There was talk of an extended cut which would restore 10 to 15 minutes back into the film. Disney had apparently trimmed it down for its release, but I'm unsure what has been taken out and if it will improve the film if it was restored. It did pretty well on release and especially on rentals when it came on VHS, and I'm surprised it's been treated so poorly on DVD and Blu-ray. The picture transfers are fine, but it's not received that special edition treatment, and it's sort of been forgotten about. There were hopes for a sequel, but legal issues have surrounded the rights for years. Warren Beatty purchased the rights from Tribune Media Services in 1985 to allow him to make a film and a follow-up, and once Disney felt it didn't make as much money as they hoped, which was partially their fault because they spent so much money advertising it, it went into limbo, and Tribune Media tried to claim the rights back and supposedly broke the agreement they made with Beatty. Things went back and forth, and I think Warren Beatty does have full control now, and in 2011 he said he would do a sequel, but I would imagine he would only direct it because he's in his 70s now and wouldn't be starring in it. I can definitely recommend Dick Tracy if you have never seen it before. It's a visually stunning film with a great soundtrack and performances by some of the best actors in the business. This story is interesting to a certain degree and will keep you entertained, especially the humour provided by the villains. But don't expect too much action and detective work. It really aims more towards a romantic triangle between Tracy, Tess and Breathless Mahoney. If you've seen it before and wasn't too keen on it as a kid, then hopefully I've encouraged you to watch it again and to appreciate what they were trying to do with its visual design and direction.